Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to PMDC online lecture room. My name is Ali Ahmad. Dear students, today we will learn the poem "The World is Too Much with Us." That is one of the famous poems of Wordsworth. You know that Wordsworth is a poet of nature. He is famous for his poems like The Daffodils, like Solitary Reaper, and the Tintern Abbey, the Lucy Gray, and The World is Too Much with Us. That is a part of our syllabus. So he is a famous poet of romantic movement, you can say. He is a romantic poet. The romantic poets are known to describe nature. They describe nature somehow. They were his contemporary poets like Keats. He was describing beauty in nature. The same is the case with the Wordsworth. He was describing the beauty of nature also, but his way of describing nature was something different because he was a mystic poet. He describes the nature in the spiritual sense. He was of the view that there was some spiritual light in nature that gives us comfort, gives us spiritual solace, spiritual happiness, spiritual company, and that gives happiness to the alone and isolated nature of human being and men that are fed up of the worldly noise, you can say worldly a commercial environment. The people who are sad, they should approach nature. This was which was the view of Wordsworth poet. So this poem is basically a sonnet. Sonnet is a poem of 14 lines, and in the first 8 lines that are called octave, the first 8 lines we find the problem. The poet is facing a problem. He is mentioning and expressing an emotional problematic state of his nature, his soul. So that problem is mentioned in the first 8 lines of the poem. So those first 8 lines are called octave, and then the next 6 lines of the poem we find the problem, the solution of the problem given by the poet, as Wordsworth is giving a solution in this poem, you can see. So in structure it is a poem which can be called sonnet. So it is satirizing the commercial and material behavior of human beings, that they have migrated from the rustic areas, villages, to the cities. This poem is satirizing the urbanization, industrialism, materialism, the selfish nature of human beings, and the materialistic nature of human beings, that they are finding and they are searching and they are running after, they are hankering after money, but they are avoiding and ignoring the nature. That is the only source of peace for their souls. So the world is too much with us is self-explanatory form, is title even. If you look at the title is very twisting, is exaggerated title. Look at, like, the world is too much with us, like we are too much involved in the world and in its dramatic circumstances, and we are too much around the world, like we are overshadowed by the world, but still we are away from the spiritual nature, spiritual aspect of the world. We are in the world, but we are away from nature. So Wordsworth is basically a poet of nature, but in nature he finds spiritual solace, spiritual peace. He finds God the light of God, the light, the heaven light he finds in the nature, in the flower, in the sunlight. So therefore he is a mystic poet, you can call him. Let's have a look on the text of the poem. In the first stanza, the world is too much with us. Again, we are overshadowed by the world, late or soon, like getting and spending. We are getting and spending. We are late. We are late. We are not coming to the nature. We are becoming late. We are not punctual. We are not giving time to nature. We don't have discipline in our life. We must be giving time to the nature also, to ourselves also. We should be sitting, we should be having a recluse, we should be having for some time for isolation and meditation, you can say, but we don't do so. So we are very materialistic, commercial, industrial, running after money. However, so getting and spending, we are spending our time in buying and selling the things and buying the things, and this habit pattern has been adopted by us for long. But we are not giving time to our religious aspect, you can say spiritual aspect. We are not moving towards God Almighty. We are not moving towards God Almighty, by the dint, by the virtue of nature. So it is nature that we should approach, and this is how we will approach God Almighty. We lay waste our parts. We are wasting our parts, we are wasting our energies, our potential, our time in what? In the getting and spending, buying and selling. But little we see in nature. Like we hardly see in the nature, we hardly approach nature. We don't go near to the nature. We don't have time for meditation. We are too much busy. We are selling and sending and spending money and our time in making ourselves for the worldly, in building up the worldly pleasures, but we are not giving time to the nature and our spiritual brought up, spiritual build up. So little we see in nature, that is ours. Like God is ours. We are the creature of God Almighty, but we are not giving time to God Almighty, to the nature, to the heaven light. We have given our hearts away. So our hearts are need to be, our hearts need to be scratched from the dust of the world. Our minds need to be scratched from the dust of the world. A dust of the world is deposited on our heart and our head, on our mind and on our heart. Like our hearts are involved in the worldly pleasures, in the build-up of world and commercial benefits. We have become utilitarian. We are running after benefit and money and all that. A sordid boon, like we have the pleasures, we have the worldly pleasures, the reliefs, the benefits, money and lavishness and all that, the pleasures, but all these pleasures are sordid. Like they are sordid means temporary, bad, something which is short lived. Sordid means short lived, temporary, tentative, which is short lived, which is transitory, which has to be vanished one day or the other. That thing is called sordid. And boon is the happiness we have achieved or we have been granted, whatever. But the boons we have, all those boons, all those benefits, all those worldly pleasures are referred to as a boon by the poet. But those boons are sordid, like they are transitory, they are temporary, they are tentative. So, when two opposite terms are brought together by a poet, by a literary figure, so this technique, this figure of speech is called oxymoron. That will be discussed in the next lecture in the question answer. Anyhow, so this technique is called oxymoron. When two opposite terminologies, terms of literature are brought together, like if I say he is a rich born, so he is a rich poor, for example. Or if I say he is an honest thief, like honest and thief are opposite terms, but when you bring them together for some from some emphasize, for some focus or stress, so definitely this technique is called oxymoron. The same technique has been applied by the poet in this stanza. Next line, line number 5. This sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the wind that will be howling at all hours. Like sea, there is a beautiful a spectacle, beautiful look of sea. I am observing the poet Wordsworth is saying that sea is very beautiful. It has a very beautiful look. People come to the sea, come to the beach and have a look, and they get aesthetic beauty, aesthetic food to their soul, and they enjoy. The sea is open, and above the sea there is a moon. It has a beautiful look. Both of them are presenting a beautiful picture of nature. Both sea and the moon. Moon is, above the sea, and sea is open to the moon. Both are giving a beautiful look and picture of nature. But Wordsworth is saying they are, their beauty is multiplied and doubled by the wind, sound of the wind. And like Wordsworth is observing all these aspects and all these agents of nature, and he is enjoying, rather he is having these pleasures of looking at the nature, the agents of nature, the beauties of nature, beautiful aspects of nature like wind and sea and moon. But he says that the people who are running after money, they are deprived of this beautiful spectacle. The wind that will be howling at all hours, like wind is free and free source of enjoyment, source of pleasure, source of oxygen, and source of pleasures. But people are away from them. They are not enjoying this. They are not coming to these aspects of nature. So, three elements, three ethereal aspects of nature like sea, moon, and winds. Second last line. They are all hours. They are available 24/7, and they are up gathered now like sleeping flowers. They are up gathered. They are gathered together, and they are giving the beautiful picture of nature, and they are giving peace and solace, aesthetic beauty to the people who look at them, who observe them, who come near to them. And for this, everything, like flowers, then he comes to the flowers, that flowers are sleeping. Flowers are sleeping doesn't mean that flowers are like human beings and they are sleeping. By using this transferred epithet, the poet means that flowers are sleeping, like flowers are unattentive. They are being unnoticed. They are not being giving care. They are not being given attention. People are not approaching to the flowers, which are the signs of nature, which are the beautiful aspects of nature. So sleeping flowers means people are not coming to the nature, to the flowers. So they are being unattentive. They are being deprived of the attention. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. Like we are not in the proper order. We are not giving attention to the nature. We are out of tune. We are out of order, in a sense that we are not giving attention to the nature. our souls are disturbed. We are getting money and we are earning. We are busy in earning, but again we are disturbed. We don't have peace, we don't have comfort. We are busy in the worldly pleasures, in the traffic of the world, but again we don't have peace. So for the peace, Wordsworth is asking us to approach nature. If you want peace, if you want comfort, if you want spiritual solace, serenity in your mind, in your heart, so the only source of serenity and peace and the uh, comfort is the God and his nature. Coming to the next stanza, it moves us not. So the description of nature, the Wordsworth mentioned in the first stanza, he says that it moves us not. All these beautiful aspects, beautiful agents of nature like wind and like moon and sea and sunlight and all these things, they are not moving us. Like they can move us, but we are not paying attention to this nature. Oh God Almighty, Wordsworth is asking, like begging pardon for God Almighty. He is requesting God Almighty, oh God, you need a lot of attention. You deserve attention and submission, but people are not submitting before you. They are not coming towards nature in a sense. So therefore, people are negligent. They are depriving this nature. They are not coming to nature. Oh God Almighty, I would rather be a pagan, suckered in a creed outworn. So, if a Christian is not, like Christian claims to be submitting himself to God Almighty and his beliefs and all that, but if I am a Christian and I am looking at the Christian people living in the Christian society, the people who claim to be Christian and who claim to be mystic or near to the God Almighty, and if those people are away from nature, so Wordsworth is repentfully saying that I would prefer to be pagan. By pagan here, the Wordsworth poet has used an allusion. Allusion is a historical reference given by a poet or prose writer. So a pagan, pagan people were there before 1000 years, and they used to worship the nature like sun, whatever was powerful. They used to pray that, they used to worship that thing, they used to consider them God, whatever was powerful before 1000 years. So those people who considered sun as God, who considered sea as God, so those people were called pagan. But when Christianity came 1000 before, so all the people they got some sense that no, there is a God who is running all the world. Sun is not God, it's the creature of God Almighty. Sea is not God, sea is the creation of God Almighty. So they got this sense out from the Christianity. So Wordsworth is preferring to be pagan. By pagan he means to say that because pagans people were, they were famous for having given attention to the nature. They liked nature. Pagans were they used to be with nature. They used to be standing in the grass, on the surface of grass. They were giving attention to the nature. They were standing on the seashore, sea beach, and they were giving attention to the nature. So for this reason, the Wordsworth is preferring to be a pagan rather. If Christian people are like that, they are not giving attention to the nature. Why he wants to be pagan? Because if he will be pagan, definitely, so he might be standing on the pleasant lea. Lea is a pasture, lea means pasture, where you find grass and where you find cattle, you find lambs and goats, they are eating grass. So definitely you find gardens and you find greenery. So in that greenery you find animal and you find nature. These are the sort the pictures, they are presenting the pictures of nature. So therefore Wordsworth wants to be, he prefers to be pagan rather. A pagan is standing on the lea pasture. Lea means pasture, grass on which you find animals grazing on the grass. Have a glimpses. If he would be a pagan, he would be having glimpses. Glimpses means looks, pictures. He will be having glimpses and pictures that would make me less forlorn. Forlorn means sad. So right now Wordsworth is saying that I'm sad, I'm forlorn. Forlorn means sad because people are not giving attention to the nature. But if I would be pagan, so I would be happy, because a pagan person is always looking at the nature. Even Wordsworth is saying that even he himself is not giving that much attention to the nature as nature demands and as nature deserves. So he says that I would be preferring to be rather pagan. That a pagan person is never sad. He would be less, pagan is less forlorn, less sad, because pagan is overshadowed by nature. Pagan is between nature, or you can say in the company of nature. And if I would be pagan, so 1000 years before, there was a belief of pagan people that when they would be approaching to the sea, so they will be having a look of Proteus. Proteus was a god of sea, according to their belief, that Proteus was a god of sea, and Triton rising from the sea. So it was a symbol of beauty, that they would be having a look of Proteus, that the people would be having, people of England, people of Europe, they would be having this belief. They would have this belief, religious belief, that there was a god of sea whose name was Proteus. It was their religious belief. So when the pagan would be approaching to the sea, they would be having a look, beautiful look, aesthetic beauty of god of sea. They would be having look of Proteus if they would be coming towards the sea at night, and they would be having a sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear the Triton blow his wreathed horn. So Triton is another illusion, historical reference. Both this Triton and Proteus are the historical references from the old European, you can say, culture, European religion. You can say that people would be having this belief that at night, previously 1000 years before, like people believe that at night there is a god of sea, there is a god of sea like Proteus and Triton. Triton was a god, also a god, sea god, according to the belief of Christians, old pagans, that when they thought that these gods appear on the surface of earth, and they are full of light, when they were full of light, so it was a source of beauty for them. When the pagan appeared to they approached, at that time they would approach to the sea, they would be having a look of these two gods, Tritons and Proteus. So the poet Wordsworth is saying that I would rather prefer to be pagan, because pagans were having these reliefs, pagans were having these comforts while looking at the nature, enjoying sunny, enjoying the beautiful grass, enjoying rain, enjoying the glimpses of gods, goddesses, gods of sea gods, Proteus and Triton. So if we can conclude this poem, however, these beliefs they may not be existing right now, because it is 21st century. These beliefs might not be there, but previously 1000 years before, the pagans would be having these beliefs of Proteus and Triton. That there was a Triton. When people would be coming to the sea beach, they would be having this uh, the song. The Triton would sing a song. He would play a horn, so that horn was sweet to hear. It was sweetest to hear at that time. So it was their belief. So if let's conclude, let's hit the nail on the head, and to cut short, we can say that the nature is full of comfort. It has a motherly aspect. You can say a motherly solace, as mother is a source of comfort, source of protection. You can say it's a safeguard for his son, for her son, for her children. So same is the case with nature. Nature is mystic. Nature is full of comforts. It is it is motherly for us. It gives us solace, spiritual relief, spiritual solace, spiritual peace to our mind and to our soul. It nourishes us. It gives us happiness when we approach nature. So Wordsworth is asking us to be approaching to nature, to be mystic, to recognize, to identify nature, to identify and recognize and to approach God Almighty through the nature. If we will come towards nature, if we will come towards nature and we will observe the natural aspects, so definitely we will be approaching to God Almighty, and this is how we will be having peace in our hearts and minds. We will be having happiness, prosperity in our life. Then there are figure of speeches. Like figure of speeches are the techniques applied by the poet. The first is rhyming words we find normally in the poem. You might have observed that there are rhyming words followed by line to line, and those rhyming words create a musicality, a rhythmic effect in the poem. So that is easy to remember. That is a melodious, that creates a melody in the poem, like soon, boon, and tune. And there are so many words you might have observed. Simile, the poetic technique, it has been applied in the poem also, like when he says, like sleeping flowers. So, like and so, these two words are used in simile. Simile is a poetic device in which two things are compared by a poet because of due to their similarity, point of similarity. Like if I say he is like a lion, so why I'm saying like this, because he has the bravery, like the bravery of lion, therefore I'm comparing him to a lion. I'm comparing him to a lion because of the reason of similarity, similar reason, and that similar reason is bravery. So therefore I'm comparing him to lion. So same is the case here. The like sleeping flowers, something has been compared with flowers. So then allusion has been used. Allusion is a historical reference. When you give reference from history in your poem, in your prosaic writing, you give historical reference. The reference of pagan, the reference of Proteus and Triton, Greek goddess, Greek gods of 1400 years before or 1000 years before, the beliefs, old beliefs of the Christian people have been referred as Proteus and pagan and Triton. So this technique is called allusion, that has been successfully used by the poet Wordsworth. Personification is another poetic technique that has been used by the poet. Personification is a technique in which something is personified, something is given human quality. For example, if you might have read the story Fox and Crow, they are talking, they are having dialogues between them. Fox is praising crow that you have a sweet voice, please make a song, sing for me. So this dialogue, when you grant this dialogue to animals or something other than human beings, so granting or giving this human quality to something other than human beings is called personification. Personification is from personify, and if you cut it short more, so person. So personification is from person, giving the quality of person to something other than person or human being. So look at she bears her bosom to the moon, like she is standing before, she is in front of moon. So standing or being in front of somebody else, so it is the standing a position of human beings. However, it has been given to the sea, something other than human being. So this is called personification. Then transferred epithet, it is also a poetic technique when it is like personification, when you give the quality of human beings to something non living, or like other than human being. So it is called transferred epithet, because you mention a noun and you transfer that the quality of that noun to some other noun. For example, look at sleeping flowers. So here the modifier sleeping is the quality, is describing the quality of flowers. So sleeping flowers, some some quality of thing, the quality of a noun has been transferred to flowers. Though it is not the quality of flowers, but you have transferred and you have applied this quality to flowers. Flowers never sleep, are sleepless. So, but you have applied them. You have to describe the flowers. You have to give the effect of these two terms to some other thing you have mentioned before, like sleepless flowers. So therefore this is called transferred epithet. Epithet is an adjective which is made of two words, that is called epithet. Like I spent sleepless nights. So nights are never sleepless. We are sleepless sometimes. We are suffering from insomnia, but we say that we have spent sleepless nights. So here nights is a non-living thing, and sleepless is something the quality of human beings. Sleeplessness are living organisms. So it has been transferred to nights, like sleepless nights. So it is such a epithet, that such a epithet in which you transfer the quality of something to another. Therefore it is called transferred epithet. It is also a figure of speech. Reference to the context, it must be very much clear that when the question comes in paper, that explain the given stanza with reference to the context, so there must be three headings. It is more beautiful than writing like this: reference to the context, one heading, and then the second heading, explanation. So the first heading should be reference. In reference you write the address of the lines given to you, like stanza is given to you, you should write this reference like this: these lines have been written by the composed by the poet Wordsworth, and name like these stanza have been taken from the poem The World Is Too Much With Us, composed by Wordsworth. This is the simple address must be given in the reference, against the reference, after colon. Then the second heading should be context. In context you write the main theme of the given stanza, not the whole poem, not the entire poem. Just you have to give the one liner of the stanza given to you. Then in explanation you further explain the given stanza, that stanza which is given to you in paper. So in that stanza it should be explained in the explanation paragraph. There is no such thing like paraphrase or like that. Paraphrase is something different. So paraphrase should not be mixed with these question. This question is quite different from paraphrase. In paraphrase, you write a paragraph. Phrase refers to line or sentence, okay, and para is a short contracted form of paragraph. So paraphrase is to bring a poetic stanza in the form of paragraph of sentences. So paraphrase is to just convert poetic lines into prosaic lines, like you have to convert them to in prose. You don't have to explain the stanza in your own words. You explain the stanza in reference to the context and explanation, not in paraphrase. In paraphrase, the first person language will be followed, like I, as if you are the poet and you are converting, you are saying the same stanza in prose form. But in reference to the context and explanation, you have to explain the poet's plea, the poet's opinion, the poet's expressions and his emotions and his poetry. So in the explanation and reference to the context, you use third person language, like the poetess says or she says or he says that he. But in the paraphrase, you don't use such a language that he says that, the poet says that, the poet describes and he or she says that he says that he, she says that she. Such language is not used in a paraphrase. Okay, in paraphrase you use the first person pronoun I and we if needed. Okay, students, thank you very much for having or giving time to me. If you have further queries, you can contact us in the given the number below mentioned.